Good morning. It is Monday, October 26th, and the start of a new weekly reading vlog. So I physically am about less than 150 pages from the end of Forest of Souls by Lori M. Lee, and I've been having a lot of fun with this one. So I really like the atmosphere and the creepy forest going on here. There's definitely some complicated stuff in terms of just the different groups in this world and kind of the interactions and the history between them. There's a huge glossary at the beginning, and I'm kind of glad that that's there because it can get a little bit confusing at times, or there's just like a lot to keep track of, I think, and but I'm having fun with this one, so I'll talk more about that one once I finish it up, and I'll kind of talk a little bit more about what the book is about a little bit later. So if I'm hoping that I can get that done relatively soon, and so I think the next book that I'm going to pick up physically is The Iron Jackal by Chris Wooding. This is the third book in the Ketty J series. I actually have the audiobook for this one on Audible as well, so hopefully I can listen. I've heard the audiobooks are really good, so hopefully I can listen and physically read at the same time. So that should be my next physical one that I pick up. And as far as audiobooks, I'm a third, a quarter, I'm not sure, somewhere in that general area through the audiobook of Unbowed by Matai, and so I'm gonna finish that one. And then as far as my next audiobooks, once I'm done with that one, I think I have under 8 or 9 hours of the audiobook left, and so that won't take too much longer, I think, and hopefully I can finish it in time for the live show for the X Book Club. So those are the main ones that I kind of set aside to read in October, so I'll be done with most of my October TBR. I didn't quite get to everything that I was like, well, it would be nice to get to continuing on in these series, so I haven't read any of the Charlotte Holmes series. I haven't picked up any more books in the Diviners series, which is really sad. I was really hoping I could get to at least one more book in the Diviners series, but you know, we'll have to see how that goes, because those were perfect to read around this time. I read the Diviners around this time last year and it was perfect. So I didn't quite get to everything that I was shooting to get to in October, but I at least got to almost everything. So that's pretty exciting. I know I've got some books on hold from the library that should be coming in relatively soon, so it just kind of depends on the next few days and which of those audiobooks come in. And I know I've got The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, Well Played by Jen DeLuca, and A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik kind of on the verge of being ready for me. So those might come in by the time I finished Unbowed. So we'll see what happens there. And if those haven't come through by the time I finish it, then I'll have to figure out what I want to do. But we'll figure that out later. So, but yeah, welcome to the start of a new reading vlog, and I will check in later with my reading progress. Good morning. It is a Friday, October 30th. I have a couple of updates. One, I finished Forest of Souls by Lori M. Lee, and this one was a lot of fun. So this one I don't think I've actually talked about what this book is about yet, but this one follows Saoirse, our main character, and she is in training. She's one of several potential apprentices to the Queen's spy, essentially, and so the person who's training her is training some other people too, and she's going to ultimately kind of pick an apprentice and pick a successor. So she's in training with this person, and at one point she sees a note that's meant for one of the other competitors that kind of describes some information or describes something that's going to be happening in a particular location. So our main character tries to go there and head him off and try to get that information before this other apprentice can get this information. And she goes with one of her friends, and while they're there, they're attacked by shamans. There are 3 kingdoms in this world, and they kind of have a tense relationship and not everyone. So Saoirse lives kind of in the human-ish kingdom, and the queen of that kingdom is starting to crack down more and more on shamans and shaman-born. And you know, if you have different magical abilities, there are different kinds of magical abilities that you can have in this world, and sometimes they're kind of awakened at a particular point in your life. And when those two are attacked by shamans, her friend actually ends up getting killed, and somehow Saoirse is able to actually bring her friend back to life. She's not really sure kind of what happened or how she was able to do that, but she just kind of wakes back up and realizes that her friend was dead and that she was able to bring her friend back to life. And the Spider King summons her and her friend to go see him. So the Spider King lives in this forest that has a bunch of souls that are trapped in the trees, and so it's kind of a spooky forest situation. And Saoirse and her friend are kind of summoned by the Spider King to go into this deadwood and go see him. She finds out that she's the first soul guide in living memory, and he tells her that he normally is able to kind of keep this deadwood under control and also kind of help maintain at least a tenuous peace between these three different kingdoms. But he is starting to lose his ability to kind of keep the forest under control, and as a soul guide, he is hoping that she might be able to learn how to use her abilities and help him with that. And so there's that going on. There's also some increased tensions between these three different kingdoms that are coming to a head. And so the story kind of goes from there. And I thought it was super interesting. This image, this is the art on the reverse of the dust jacket from the Fairyloot edition, but like this image kind of really describes the vibes of this book, which was exactly what I was looking for right now. So, you know, there was the spooky forest. I thought the world was just pretty interesting, and the stuff that Saoirse and her friend get up to were pretty interesting. It was a relatively action-packed-ish book that overall was just, I thought, pretty fun. Nothing particularly memorable or special for me, but I'll still am interested in reading the sequel. I think this is going to be a duology, but I am not entirely sure. But I'm definitely interested in reading the next book and just kind of seeing what happens. I'm for sure interested enough to do that. So definitely had a good time with this, and would recommend as something to read around this time. And I also finished the audiobook of Unbowed by Wangari Maathai. This was super interesting, would highly recommend. So Wangari was a Kenyan activist, political and environmental activist, who won the Nobel Peace Prize, and she is most known, at least in terms of that work, for the Green Belt movement. And so she talks about growing up and her the area in Kenya that she grew up, and how her home area was affected by colonialism, and she talks about her early education and how close she was to potentially not being able to be educated, and her experiences going to school in America, some later schooling, college, grad school, part of grad school in America. She did some additional schooling in Europe and Germany. So she talks about her education, she talks about going back to Africa, and kind of talks about her work. She actually originally worked for a university, and it kind of more in lines with what she was researching for her education, and talks about some life experiences that kind of shifted some things that she was focusing on in her work. She talks about how sexism has affected her throughout her life, how racism has affected her throughout her life, political struggles that happened after Kenya was no longer a colony of England, and how difficult that was, the political stuff that was happening in Kenya at the time that was not great, and talks a lot about that, and talks about how she progressively just got more and more involved in trying to kind of help fix those things, and personal stuff that was going on in her life, more about her development in her professional career. And it was fascinating. Like, just, it is unbelievable just how much she was able to overcome just constant setbacks. And I mean, it just is incredible. And it was really, really interesting to just hear her life story and just hear more about kind of what she's learned throughout those experiences, or as a result of those experiences. And again, just how much she was able to overcome, because it's mind-boggling of just people constantly, and political forces, and just people, like, it wasn't just government forces, but just a lot of situations that just were pushing back against everything she was trying to do, even though she was trying to do the right thing, and was trying to help people, and just what she had to do to kind of take care of herself as best she could, kind of gather support from people around her and find people who could help her, and eventually kind of help build what she was able to build. And part of what she was able to build was a result of a time where she basically just lost so much in her life, which was really, really interesting. And anyway, it was a fascinating story. Would highly recommend everyone to read this book. So those are the two that I was able to finish this week. I then started The Iron Jackal by Chris Whitting. This is the third book in the Ketty J series. I am just barely started with this. I also have the audiobook on Audible for this one. I've read the first two physically, but I also wanted to check out the audiobook. So I'm going to listen to the audiobook while physically reading and see how that goes. I have loved the narrator so far, but again, I'm not very far into this one, so can't say much about it. I also decided that since I finished Unbowed, that I needed another audiobook, and I could start with the ones I had planned for November, but there's at least enough time. Maybe I won't be able to finish this by Halloween or on Halloween, but I still saw that Layer of Dreams by Libba Bray the audiobook was on Libby from my library available. And even if I can't finish it by the end of the month and kind of finish it on Halloween, which would be really cool, because I know this is hopefully going to be kind of a nice spooky story, even if it takes a little bit into November to finish, I wanted to go for it. I wanted to go for it. So I decided to rent that from the library and started listening to Layer of Dreams. So I'm going to see how much of that I can get listened to today and tomorrow. It's a long-ish audiobook, so I'm definitely not going to finish it by the end of tomorrow. I don't know what I'm saying that it's even possible. I highly doubt I'm going to finish it by the end of tomorrow. But we'll see how far I can get this weekend, and hopefully I'll be able to just kind of chill a little bit tomorrow night and just listen to a nice spooky audiobook. But anyway, that is how my reading is going so far, and I will check in later. Good morning. It is Monday, November 2nd, and just here to wrap up this week's reading vlog. Definitely a good reading week, finishing the memoir of Wangari Maathai, as well as starting The Iron Jackal. I also have been listening to the second book in the Diviner series, Layer of Dreams by Libba Bray. I had a couple days left in October, so wanted to see if I could sneak in just one more spooky read, even if it would bleed over a bit into November. And this one was available from my library on Libby, so just went ahead and thought that it would be the perfect way to wrap up October. And so far it has been. I'm more than 60, maybe 70% of the way through that, so I'm going to finish that pretty soon and just continue reading in the Iron Jackal. But yeah, it's been a good reading week, so hope you've had a good reading week as well. I'll be sure to link my Twitter and Instagram down below. That's where I like to hang out. Of course, subscribe for more bookish content. I'll leave more resources down below for how you can support the Black Lives Matter movement, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.